Good evening, everyone, and welcome to WANA Live, the reading series of the Writers Association of Northern Appalachia. I'm your host, Damian Dressick, and this is your other host,
Christina Fasonic from Wheeling, West Virginia. I thought for certain, Damian, that you would be showing up with your hair blown and sticks and weeds and who knows what, because you said it was storming on your way back, right?
Well, yes, I intended to do our because we've got a special guest tonight, a writer from Pittsburgh, and I was going to do the show live from outside the main branch of the Carnegie Library, sort of a tribute. But then the librarian said you are welcome to use the steps and our Wi-Fi, except you're going to be doing it in the rain. So I thought better of that and hightailed it home.
Yes, that was a good move on your part. So we do have a great Pittsburgh writer on our show tonight. Would you like to introduce him to the audience?
I very much would. This evening we have got Fred Shaw, a graduate of the University of Pittsburgh and also a recipient of an MFA from Carlow University. Fred teaches writing and literature at Point Park University and Carlow. He is a book reviewer as well as the poetry editor for Pittsburgh Quarterly. His poem Argot is featured in the 2018 full-length documentary Eating and Working. The film focuses on the lives of local service industry workers. His poem Scraping Away was selected for the Pennsylvania Public Poetry Project in 2017. He lives in Pittsburgh with his wife and a rescued hound dog. So let's get Fred out here.
Yes. Uh-oh.
Hey guys, how is everyone tonight?
Good. It's nice to have you on the show.
Thank you. It's an honor to have been asked, and really excited to read some work. I'm coming here from my new office at the house my wife and I just bought, so this is interesting to kind of have my own little space to do this, and so hopefully the dogs, plural, now don't bark too much. So I'm just going to kind of jump into things. I'm guessing it's a good way to go about doing it.
Sure. So
yes, absolutely.
You're going to read from your book, Fred?
Yes. So the book is Scraping Away. It was published it came out right when the pandemic dropped. So it's been an interesting time trying to get the word out. But thankfully, through readings like this and some other ones that I'll be able to. So for those that are unfamiliar with my work, it kind of focuses on three things at this point, anyways. That I have over 30 years working in the restaurant business. I'm actually playing hooky right now. I was supposed to be at work, and I said, "Hey, I got to do this reading for these folks." And so the boss was cool about it. So I tend to write a lot about my years working in the restaurant business. That tends to kind of touch on a lot of different people that I've worked with. I also write about family, and I tend to write about music as well. So I'm going to try to touch on each of those things with these poems, and we'll see where it takes us from there. So the first.
Okay.
So we're gonna go away. We're gonna let you off the screen, and we're gonna come back when you are you've
finished.
Okay. All right. That sounds awesome, guys. Thank you. So this first poem is called Curse. Waiting for steak and fries beneath the dining room's cold light, I look on as Angelita, the stocky Paiute waitress, hauls ales and elk burgers to tables of Germans touring Utah parks on Beamer bikes. It took until senior year for me to balance a full tray of steaming chow, elbow wobbling until I learned to spread fingers wide, hoisting the fiberglass oval on the level plane of my palm, held steady above my right shoulder. And when the boss said to hustle, I wore a ready smile and worked without pause, buffing lipstick from wine glass rims, scooping up what was left behind, spoons and mugs full of half full of cold coffee, chicken bones and change, once slimy denture. Delivering dumb calories to hungry mouths is enough to consider the flocks of fried fowl, the braised and broiled herds I've lugged 3 plates at a time on one of my skinny limbs, and to wonder if it's worth sharing with this hardworking woman how I measured out my tired body by the decade, one arm grown longer than the other. The part about the denture is absolutely true. Got to pick a pair of dentures up off the table once. This next poem is for my dad, who passed away in 2004. He was an interesting character, and so I've definitely found myself writing quite a lot of poems about him since he passed. This one's called Slugger. On the narrow streets where I grow up, a southpaw wave or headlight flash is all the harmony it takes for drivers to settle right of way, until a traffic slight and a beer buzz sets Dad off on a beeline to bash our bald neighbor's head, spitting nails and waving my dusty Louisville Slugger. When Mom's cries won't turn him back, I'm sent to block the walkway, a teen trying to pry those 30 ounces of hard gray aluminum from his machinist hands, coiled around its sticky black taped handle. This is the bat that smacked a Little League triple. Years later, a faded Ford blocking my driveway for days will set me off on a scramble to its roof, trying to smash this sedan as if it were 1,000 empty cans, a constellation of crescent dents left before a window gets shattered, my left hand bloodied. And after a hazy morning of lying to the cops, the heap gets towed, bits of safety glass twinkling my street for weeks, the barest reminder of a feeling, that summer fastball finding the sweet spotted barrel, my feet barely touching ground as I rounded first base. And this next one goes out to my buddy Len Bogatz, who's living in Hawaii. And the show that we were supposed to see was Social Distortion back in 1987, I believe. Punk. I keep embarrassment in a stash, stacked and piled like yellowed news and cracked plaster rooms off behind the kitchen table of my mind. A place to visit my drunken faux pas, file away the fuck-ups, and feel bad about the time I hit an old woman in the mouth with a jar full of maraschino cherries. Sometimes I thumb through to that time when Leo and I were 16, and we sat parked for hours in front of the Electric Banana. A punk club will never go inside out of fear our night might end in a busted nose from a swirling mosh pit full of knees. Our missed chance to stomp and bleed on a sticky dance floor still jangles like loose change in a pocketful of sad attempts to fit in. But it's only after Leo's blonde hair is lost to glue and malt liquor in a botched attempt at dreadlocks, after he buzzed it close to the skull and we lose touch, that I'll come to know so well those Minor Threat cassettes that click in a dusty Delco tape deck while we watch the Iron City punks loiter about the Banana's front door in their comfortable mohawks and effortless combat boots. Marooned and sober behind a foggy windshield, a lush hillside fails to take shape, and I find that decades later, I am a self full of deeds undone, going places where so much is an idling Chevy with a paint job the color of contusion. I'm going to wrap things up with just one last short poem called The Communicants. Here, Tuesday stumbling toward midnight, we're stuck with that lone couple lingering over a last swallow of Pinot. Their plates cleared, water glasses emptied, check unsettled. They don't care that the closing cook has swept and mopped his now dark kitchen where the dish machine cools among bottles of bleach, or that last call was given long ago. Instead, they lean in and whisper while we sip water and try not to stare, soaking up the flicker of a muted TV, feeling forgotten like those doggy bags we pack that get left behind And if work can be worship, it finds us supplicant and waiting for the chirp of chairs pushing back from their table, followed by heels clicking on hard wood, a recessional marking the end of service, the front door closing like a prayer, quiet on its hinges. Thank you so much.
Wow, that was really awesome. I love all of the movement in those poems. And I think that last line about it closing like a prayer, I mean, I really loved all of those. And the images, I was a server for a very long time, and I was there with you in that first poem, having found some very strange things on tables, under tables, in booths, and this idea of this sort of room of embarrassment that was extraordinary. And I hope that at some point you'll explain how you wound up hitting a woman with some maraschino cherries. Just some thoughts randomly off the top of my head. It was wonderful, wonderful reading.
Good stuff. Thank you, Christina. Yeah, I actually was at a restaurant that I worked at for a long time, and it was early before right as the shift was starting, and a bartender had a full jar of maraschino cherries that she couldn't get open. So I brought it into the back to the kitchen, and I put a little hole in the top of it to release the vacuum. And I opened it up, and I had it in my arms, and I was cutting to the bar, and there was a bathroom. And as I was walking past the bathroom, this little tiny woman was walking out at the same time, and I smacked her in the mouth with it. We both had this very surprised look on our face. I didn't know what to do. She walked to her table. I went and gave the cherries to the bartender. And then the hostess said, "Oh, that's your table, by the way," that I was going to have to wait on that lady. And so at the time, my wife and I were working together, and I said, "Honey, you have got to wait on this woman. There's no way that I'm going to be able to take care of her." So she was, aside from shock and like a little bit of a bump on her lip, she was generally okay. But for some reason, I felt that image just kind of fit pretty well there.
That's something that'll always stick with you, right? That this horrible thing happened.
Absolutely, absolutely. There was another poem that I had written that I didn't read tonight, but was just kind of this list of horrible things that have happened to either myself or it just turned into like a list of all these things that I could think of that had happened to myself or other people in restaurants. And it was pretty interesting how many of them that I could come up with. So yeah, you definitely come across a lot of tricky situations for sure.
Well, people just do not understand that either. If they've never been a server or a greeter or a cook or anything in a restaurant, they have no idea how challenging and strange of a place a restaurant is, especially when it's full tilt. It's busy and crowded, and I don't think they realize that at all.
Yeah, absolutely, Christina. Yeah, that there's just there's so much stuff that goes into it, and if you haven't done it before, I think that was part of my realization that this was a world that certainly other people have explored in poetry before, but I just felt that I could bring my own voice to it and my own experiences, and hopefully do it justice, and to just bring attention to maybe a world that people are used to going out and eating, and certainly a lot of people have worked in the business, but just the fact that so many strange things happen, that you have to really always be on your toes and kind of thinking in those sort of ways. And you generally do have to be a people person, even if you ultimately don't like people. You have to fake it until you make it kind of thing. And I know that whenever I first got started working in restaurants, yes, absolutely, that it's all about the money, is that I do really feel like that I've become much more of an extrovert that I wasn't as a kid whenever I first got started at 16, that I've that there was a lot of education that went into waiting tables. And as a college professor, what I tell my students is I didn't learn anything about teaching in grad school. I learned how to write, but it was all my restaurant background that allows me to what I imagine to be successful in a classroom is to figuring out what the needs of my students are, much the way that I think about the needs of my guests in my section and that sort of thing. And so they don't ever know what to kind of make of that information. But, I think the idea that we learn from a whole lot of different places, not just from, being at a university or school, that sort of thing. So, yeah, definitely some interesting stories have come out of it.
For sure.
I really love the work, Fred. It feels so grounded in real life, for like the real life that most people have. I mean, there's a delicious ability on your part to articulate this in this very memorable, very focused way. Really, I love the idea with your father and the bat. I've been reading a lot of Donald Ray Pollock lately, and I had a real sense of like it was just like sort of like a moment that might have been just sort of to the left of like if there's a nicer person off the page in his story, it might be like your situation. Also, I've got to. This is a very strange moment. The electric banana stuff.
Yeah.
I sort of had almost the same moment. We went to the electric banana, but we were like years too late. And it was supposed to be like, this is wild. And it's like, this is kind of, I think this is done.
Yeah. The scene was kind of on the decline.
Right. But I love the writing about it and seeing like years before, like that punk society that you want to belong to because you're an outsider, but you don't fit in with the outs. That was so delicious. I knew that moment. I know exactly what you're talking. And Deeds Undone.
Thank you. I was actually waiting tables, and one of my tables was on their way to a concert. And I was like, "What concert are you guys going to?" And they were like, Social Distortion. And I was like, I have a really funny story about the one time I tried to see them, and I was like, man, I've got to write this stuff down. It seemed so obvious, I guess, as once I said it out loud, that it just seemed obvious as a poem. And I think that's a nice thing to pick up on, Damien, is that, I never really felt like too much of an outcast. I went to a small high school, but for whatever reason, I was able to like get along with all the groups of people, even though I was, the skateboarder punk rock type. But going to that show, I felt like totally like an outcast from the outcast, as you just said it. And I just felt like I was just so out of my element. And the fact that my buddy and I just kind of sat there like, when are we going in? But we never like actually said those words out loud. And then finally it was like, all right, I guess we just need to go home. We're just like not going inside. I think we thought there was going to be some cue for us to be able to like go inside, and that just never kind of came about. So, all right, my dogs are at it. I apologize.
The dogs are barking. Red is red. But no, this is wonderful stuff.
We've had dogs and children and all kinds of things on the show come on in our episodes. You do have some fans here.
Okay, that's always nice.
Karen Bryant says that she loves these strong narrative poems. And Bart, I don't know if you know Bart, he watches our show regularly. He says, good stuff, Fred. It's been a while since he's heard you read. And the last poem and the dad poem are some of his favorites.
Thank you,
so
Bart.
That's always nice.
Big fan of both Bart and Karen's poems. And Karen had I believe had a really nice creative nonfiction piece that I just kind of randomly came across, and I was like, hey, I know that work. So I'm super glad that they're tuning in. And just the narrative work. I don't think I understood I understood what poetry was on one level whenever I was younger. I thought it was Robert Frost. I thought it was song lyrics and that sort of thing. And then I don't know if it was an anthology, if it was reading Charles Bukowski as like a young person. And I was like, wow, you can write about that type of stuff. And so I think that those kind of narrative poems were, just sort of, I think I was a failed fiction writer as well, that I took a bunch of like intro to fiction classes at Pitt. And both times they were just like these terribly derivative stories that were just not interesting. And I was just like, this isn't for me. And then I gave poetry a shot, and I figured there was somehow a melding of those two kind of things. And I know that My friend Robert gives me all these like literary magazines that he has work published in or whatnot, and I find myself, I love the poetry in them, but I find myself really drawn to the memoir and the creative nonfiction aspect of it. That I feel that sometimes that kind of informs my work, and short stories do in a way. Although I'd never try to have like some kind of big climax in my poems, or at least I'm not after that kind of stuff, anyways.
No, that was terrific work. I really love the grounding in lived experience. It really spoke to me. I worked as a waiter for a couple of years myself, different joints. So but just I felt like there was a real ability to translate the working class experience into this beautiful thing called art, and that was really special. I really dug what you're doing. Could you hold that book up one more time?
Yes, absolutely.
And then where can folks find your book?
Kevin Carey Press is the place to go. kevincareypress.org. It's out of New Jersey, but it's available through bookstore.com, I believe, and I think that, like, strangely enough, like Target and Barnes and Noble had it available, and Amazon and that sort of thing. But I know my publisher would love it if anyone that doesn't have a copy would reach out to them, and it would let them know that that people are interested in the work for sure.
Super cool. Well, thank you so much for coming on WANA Live.
Okay, thank you so much, Christina and Damien. It was awesome to get to meet you all and to take part of this. And I look forward to crossing paths with both of you and anyone else that's out there reading in the future. So thank you so much, and thanks for tuning in. It's been a pleasure.
Cool.
Oh,
now, Christina, what are you going to tell people about?
Well, I, of course, have to remind everybody that our Writers Conference is coming up in September 10th through the 12th at Ogilvy Park in Wheeling, West Virginia. Registration is open for that, and you can find out more about our keynotes and presenters and our writing contests and all the other cool stuff that we'll be doing at the Writers Association of Northern Appalachia.org.
So let me just jump in, because some folks have been messaging me on Facebook about this. They're wondering about hotel rooms. Like, they asked, is there a place to stay in Ogilvy? And what I wanted to let everybody know who might be watching the show is Ogilvy is a resort and hotel. So there are hotel rooms right on site, and Ogilvy is offering a special conference, deeply discounted rate for our attendees.
Yes, all you got to do is say you're there for WANA, and they will give you the really discounted room rate. And if you haven't been to Ogilvy, you're going to love it. It's a beautiful place, and I swim there every day. It's an extraordinary venue for getting together and sort of coming back out of our cloistering from COVID-19. It's a good place for us to get together again and spend time with writers. So please join us there in September. Also, next week, our writer is Nancy McCabe, right?
It is. Thank you so much. I was just about to say our writer is Nancy McCabe. Yes, who is a terrific memoirist from the University of Pittsburgh at Bradford. I've seen Nancy read within the last year. She is awesome. So be sure to tune in for Nancy McCabe on WANA Live.
Thank you again, Fred, and see everybody next week, same place.
Thank you.
Night.
Good night.